Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. Hey, Positive Filter listeners, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. Today, we are joined by my good friend and old roommate from JMU, the best college in Virginia. Sorry to my current employers. I'm joined by Matt Alfonso. So before I give Matt a time to talk, I'm just going to give a brief introduction of him. We live together, the four of us, me, Matt, Kelly, and Chris. We lived in Trashby, Ashby, as they called it, at JMU. And Matt has always been a lover of the game of basketball. And while at JMU, in my time of knowing him, he worked closely with the basketball team there. One as a manager for the equipment. And you can correct me because I'm always just saying stuff. But then later on as a graduate assistant. So he's always been around the game of basketball. And right now he is an assistant head coach. But Matt, give the listeners a little bit of who you are and a little introduction.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on, Phil. I'm excited to be joining you on the podcast. So I was a manager and then a grad assistant, graduate head manager at JMU. So did everything from rebounding for players to helping coaches with stuff in the office to jobs like cleaning the floor if somebody fell and wiping up the sweat and that kind of stuff, and doing laundry. So it's kind of a mix of all sorts of different tasks. And then from there, I really wanted to get into college coaching. So that was kind of my dream, was to become a college basketball coach. So then I went to coach at Gonzaga High School in Washington, D.C., it's one of the best high schools for basketball in the country, and I was an assistant coach there. And then actually kind of had a change of heart and wanted to go internationally. So then I was in Paraguay for 2 years, and I was both teaching and coaching there. So I was teaching elementary PE and then varsity boys head coach, and then went to China and was teaching middle school, high school PE, and then the girls varsity head coach, which was pretty cool because I got a chance to coach girls as well. And then these past 3 years, I've been at Bard College. So first 2 years as assistant coach, and then this past year as associate head coach.
Now, so you give an explanation where Bard College is and what level of basketball it is, and then we're going to go further and talk about your journey into coaching.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Bard is 2 hours north of New York City. So it's kind of located right along the Hudson River. Bard is a Division III school for all of athletics. And then for basketball, we're in the Liberty League Conference. So we play teams like Vassar and Union and Hobart and RIT and RPI and, those type of schools. All right.
So let's go back in the time machine. You got a love of the game, and I know your parents, Tony, right? That's your dad, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony's got a love of the game too. Tell us a little bit about taking us in the time machine about your exposure to basketball and your dad. 'Cause I know your dad, he refs, correct?
Yeah, he ref for a long time. He retired, but he was doing it for a while.
So tell us a little bit. Take us back to how you began to fall in love with basketball.
Yeah, so I've been playing basketball ever since I was a little kid, ever since I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I kind of played a whole bunch of sports when I was growing up: basketball, baseball, soccer, switched to lacrosse, played tennis as well. But basketball is kind of the one constant for me all the way through. My dad coached me for a number of the teams as well, so he kind of was the one that really taught me basketball. He was kind of both a coach and a referee, but he was a good player, back in his day, and played college basketball himself. Then I was always kind of thinking become a high school coach, and then once I got to JMU and then got involved with the team there, I kind of thought all right, maybe I'll go into college coaching. But it's always been something that I've loved. I've kind of always loved either playing the game or teaching the game or just kind of being around it.
Now, I think, honestly, I always appreciate people that, obviously the X's and O's. When did you decide that, like, you wanted to nerd out a little bit and instead of just physically playing it, you wanted to learn the ins and outs of basketball and the behind the scenes of basketball?
Yeah, so like a lot of kids, I had dreams of playing the NBA, but that was kind of, maybe it wasn't that realistic and kind of realized wasn't quite good enough. So then at JMU, I thought about walking on the team, and then kind of the opportunity didn't really present itself. So then I started to work with the team as a manager. And working in kind of college athletics, especially at the Division I level for basketball, you realize how little you know about basketball until you kind of work with a team like that and, learn from the head coach and the 3 assistant coaches who they've all been doing it for, 20 years and, it's their livelihood. So that's really when I started to kind of learn the ins and outs of the game of basketball was at JMU from those coaches.
I like what you said. So what was maybe a aha moment or an instance where you were like, I really don't know the behind the scenes of basketball or the ins and outs of basketball? Like you just said that earlier. What was one moment you were like, wow, I didn't realize this much went into playing basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I used to keep a notebook back when I was at JMU, and I would go to practice and then come home and try to remember as many things from practice as I could and just be taking notes on, what the coach said about defense or, different drills that he did or, how he taught a certain concept. So I don't know if there was kind of one, like, defining moment. It was more just being around it kind of day in, day out. I was just constantly learning new things pretty much every day, which was pretty cool.
Now, when you had to adapt your style or when you were like, okay, I want to be a college coach, who were some of the people that out either within your life at JMU or just in general out there coaching on TV, who were the people that you looked up to?
Yeah, I used to also go to coaching clinics, and there was Nike coaching clinics, so I got a chance to see people like Roy Williams, and who's the head coach of North Carolina, and Jim Boeheim, who's the head coach at Syracuse. And
I had to say
yeah, I forgot you're a North Carolina fan. I'm glad I brought that one up. But yeah, so I got a chance to watch kind of all these different big-name head coaches and learn from them. I did admire Coach K a lot. I know he's a Duke guy, but I admired kind of how he ran the program there in terms of how he built the culture at Duke. And, Coach K does an unbelievable job of kind of leadership and communicating with his players, kind of besides the X's and O's, just kind of how he's able to motivate and communicate with his players is kind of what separates him from a lot of coaches.
Yeah, I love that. And you said beyond X's and O's. One of I think when I look at coaches and philosophy, John Wooten and Dean Smith, and how they, not just with the players on the court, but they were also trying to be teachers of men. I love that philosophy. So what are some things where you adapt? What are your coaching philosophy? And when you obviously you developed your own philosophy, like the Matt Alfonso philosophy, where it's tied to what you want to instill in the students. So in the student athletes, as they say. But what is your philosophy, and how did you adapt that?
Yeah, so my philosophy, it's kind of ongoing and it's ever changing, and from different coaches that I've worked with and learned from. It really centers around growth and development, though. I want to make sure that I'm developing them as basketball players, but then more importantly as people. I think you mentioned that in terms of people like John Wooden and Dean Smith were great teachers of the game, but they also shaped young men and really made them successful people. And I mean that's one of the great things about coaching is that you can have such impact on people's lives. And, a lot of coaches are, mentor-type figures. So, coaching, it certainly allows you to help develop the players' communication skills. It helps you develop their, resiliency and being able to bounce back from losses or from injuries, helps you develop their work ethic and their discipline and, so many other different areas, their leadership. So, yeah, my philosophy really centers around development in terms of on the court and then also off the court.
Yeah, and I'm also call you like the Zen. You like the D3 Zen master like Phil Jackson because I know you're big into yoga and mindfulness and and wellness and all that. So how did you get into yoga and all that mindfulness aspect, and how do you bring that into your coaching?
Yeah, I like yoga and meditation a lot. Most mornings, kind of my first thing when I wake up is I do yoga in the morning and then meditate right after it. I got into that. I was actually traveling after I left China, and I went to a yoga retreat in Thailand, and that was kind of my really first introduction into pretty serious yoga, and then also just meditation, and learned a lot from it there. And then I tried to kind of do a yearly vacation where it's been a combination of relaxing and hanging out on the beach, and then also doing a yoga retreat. Especially this past year in March, so pretty recently, I went to the Bahamas and did a yoga and meditation retreat in the Bahamas, and then kind of coupled that in with just kind of a relaxing vacation. So in terms of how I incorporate with our players, I feel like I'm at the point now where I'm more comfortable in terms of leading that. I've led a few sessions of yoga with our players, it's really good for players. I mean, it's good for any athlete in any sport in terms of, increasing flexibility and muscular endurance and balance. In terms of mindfulness, I haven't incorporated as much as I would like. I think going forward, that's going to be kind of something I can move into. I think I feel at this point more confident in terms of either practicing meditation with them or just talking to them about being present throughout their days and just being in the present moment.
Yeah, I love that. And I like how you just stunned on us talking about all these places in the world that you doing meditation. Like, oh, yeah, I went to the Bahamas. I was in Thailand. This dude's stunting all over the world. But that's amazing. But I definitely think touching upon, I'm on this journey, too, about wellness and well-being and all that stuff and mindfulness. And in regards to, I know coaching is a very stressful profession. Your success is a lot based on wins, and you show me or told me if you don't win, they can clean house and you lose your job along with your head coach. So that could be a very anxiety-provoking thing. Like, man, we all got to win, or I'm not going to just lose my job. I'm going to lose the jobs of my assistant coaches. So how do you deal with that stress of a very competitive job with, like you said, taking care of yourself and being patient and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. And, right now it's about, 2 months after the season ends, and I feel much, much better than I did in January or February when I was kind of in the grind of the season. It's tough. The season definitely kind of wears you down because I'm working 6 or 7 days a week. There's a lot of times where I'll work, 2 or 3 straight weeks even without a day off. Division III level, there's a little bit less pressure in terms of they'll give you kind of more time than Division I. Division I, if you don't win in 2 or 3 years, then you're going to be fired. They'll give coaches kind of a few years, and, if you don't have a certain amount of success, or even if you just have kind of one bad year, like you said, the head coach is fired plus everybody else. Meditation's been really big for me, though. I think that's probably the number one thing that's kind of helped me is, being able to take a little bit of time and just, kind of sit and relax and let my mind be quiet. That, and I would say just trying to make sure that I get enough sleep. That's really important because whenever I start to get, 5-6 hours of sleep, that's when I start to get really worn down and, I lose my patience. So really those two things, meditating and then also just making sure, I'm sleeping at least, 7 or 8 hours a night.
Yeah, man. Well, I miss those days too. I got the kids. But I know that when you get good sleep and you're well, it affects me too. When Maggie and I had these crazy interrupted sleeps with early kids, it does lead to just mental well-being. Like you're just off, and anxiety and all those different things increase when you're not sleeping well. So sleep is very important to heal your mind. But
for sure. I don't know how you guys do it with kind of waking up during the middle of the night. And, I don't have any kids, but I give you guys a lot of credit for.
You do it, and it's trash, and it sucks, but you realize it's permanent. And eventually you start doing things like taking care of yourself. Like for me, I know that it's like I'm not staying up late anymore, If I know I'm going to get up early with the boys, man, there's no point for me to stay up till 1 or whatever in the morning. I go to bed typically like around the same time, like 10:30, maybe 11, with the expectation I'm going to get up at 5:36. I don't know. I didn't count the hours, but I just know that's better than, staying up way too late. So I do definitely know about taking care of yourself and getting good sleep. And I think you said something. You said the pressure at different levels and experiencing those different levels. You've seen it from the outside. Maybe you worked at different levels, a high-pressured high school, a D1 program such as JMU, and a D3. Can you take us through some of the differences of those levels for you?
So for college sports, there's Division I, Division II, Division III, and then there's also kind of some different NAIA, but I'll kind of just talk about Division I and II and III. The major difference between those three is Division I and II, you can give athletic scholarships. Division III, you can't. So Division III, for our athletes, they're either getting academic scholarships, they're getting financial aid, or they're just paying regular tuition. Where Division I and Division II, they can give full rides, where it's tuition, room and board, meals, books, all that stuff. There's definitely pros and cons to the different levels. Like I'm at Division III right now, and I actually really like it at Division III, and I would be completely fine staying in Division III my whole career and becoming a Division III head coach. I think there's a little bit more balance at the Division III level. I think there's still pressure for sure, but less pressure than the Division I level. In Division I, you certainly have to win. There's kind of, a ton of money involved at the Division I level, so that leads to kind of cheating and that kind of stuff, where there's not nearly as much that at the D3 level.
Yeah, so for the listeners that are not so familiar with basketball, but they know the big names, but what are some like not notable names, but like top D3 programs that win a lot? I don't know, just for the listeners.
For basketball, there's actually like a Wisconsin league, which is really good. So Wisconsin Oshkosh, which I've never even heard of before, won the D3 national championship this year. Okay. They beat Swarthmore in the championship. But there's a lot of D3 schools that are really good academic schools, like Amherst and Williams are, amazing academic schools, and they're also really good at basketball. So there's kind of a lot of high academic Division III schools where, the basketball is still really good, but then you're also getting an excellent education. But Williams, Amherst, Randolph-Macon in Virginia is really good. Catholic in the D.C. area is good. And then, like I mentioned, those kind of Midwest teams.
Which one was in D.C.?
Catholic University.
Oh yeah, Catholic. Okay, yeah. And I know Randolph-Macon. So there's some programs like that usually people go for other things than the sports, but obviously education and play sports. So with that being said, what have you found been one of the biggest successes or, victories in regards to your experience as a coach? And what has been a very trying time or obstacle, and how did you get over that? So maybe one really good success and one really big obstacle that was in your journey.
Yeah. First, for the success, When I first went to Paraguay, I was at the American School of Asuncion. So I was, as I mentioned before, teaching elementary PE, and I was the boys varsity head coach. So that was it was my first opportunity to have my own program. So I kind of learned a whole bunch at, JMU and Gonzaga, but, did some coaching, but, I wasn't the head coach, and there was a number of assistant coaches. So this was kind of like me being thrown into the fire, and I could kind of make mistakes and learn from them. We won a tournament in Brazil. Actually it was Brazil, called Rancho, which was the first time our basketball team had won that. So that was a really cool experience for me in terms of my first time as a head coach and winning like a big tournament and a championship, and kind of felt like, pretty proud of the accomplishment and the work that I put in. And then in terms of a negative, at JMU, when we were there together, our staff actually got fired right before I left. So Dean Keener, who was the head coach, who was an awesome coach and an awesome guy and kind of put his heart and soul into the program, we increased the wins. I think my first year was my sophomore year. We had like 5 wins, and then we increased it to 13 wins when my last year at grad school. But he still got fired, and the other assistant coaches got fired. I was a graduate assistant, so I was going to be finding another job anyway. But it was definitely an eye-opening experience in terms of, okay, like this is a business. It is pretty cutthroat, and it can certainly be a tough business for sure.
That seems like very, very scary in regards to that. The whole, and I bet he had a family and things like that.
Yeah.
When you saw that happen, what kind of impression did that leave on you, and what did it make you think about in regards to career?
Yeah, I think that experience, it started to sour college coaching for me for a little bit, and I think that experience was part of the reason why I ended up going overseas, because I kind of saw some of the negatives of college coaching and wasn't really sure if that's kind of what I wanted. And I think it wasn't the only reason, but it was one of the reasons why I decided to teach internationally and coach internationally. So that actually did have a pretty big impact on my life. And I was really upset when Coach Keener got fired. I actually remember I was like crying in the equipment room area, kind of by myself, just kind of like getting alone to myself, because I had invested a lot of time and a lot of time and energy, and so had the coaches. And it was a pretty tough thing in terms of emotionally.
And that was very sad. I mean, when you think about that sadness, and were you like just really upset that, because as you said earlier, you were going to be fine, not fine regardless, but why were you so upset? Because you had a little bit, you were thinking about his family and his experience, or, why did it get you so upset?
I think it was, from my point of view, it was because of all the energy and the time and the effort that I put in. And then I was also, probably as much or more of the other people on the staff, Dean Keener in particular, but the assistant coaches as well. They're really good guys, really good coaches, tried to do things the right way, cared about developing their players and cared about, the students' academic success. And, the program was improving. It just wasn't improving fast enough. So, I was certainly sad for all of them, for, the head coach and then the 3 assistant coaches who, let's see, 2 of the 3 of them had families. The head coach had a family, and everybody, has to then upend and, move and try to find a new job. So it's a big life shift for them. But, I was definitely sad for them.
Now, at that level, right, and I know that's very hard, is it, even though when you get dismissed from a program, just the fact that you're a college coach, are a lot of people able to bounce back and get jobs at other schools? Yeah.
Coach Keener actually got out of coaching. He kind of went into a different field, went into more of the business world. The other coaches were able to, 2 of them were able to find at other schools. One of the others actually got out of it as well. He actually works with the Atlanta Hawks, though, so he's still doing stuff in basketball, but more on the administrative side. But it depends. Oftentimes you might have to kind of drop down a little bit of a level to try to find a new job. But yeah, it kind of depend on situation to situation.
Wow. So is in regards in regards to that, doing things the right way and a lot of money, and you've seen it, take us through, I definitely see that when I see a lot of people do things like cheat and, buy players and things like that. I would understand, and the empathy part is like, wow, we can look at them and say, how dare they? But at the same time, it's like, I bet it's probably easy to fold to those things when you're scared to do your job, So
yeah.
take us through some of those things where you're just like, wow, like, I don't know, maybe just what your thoughts are on when you hear scandals and coaches doing things in regards to their ethics regarding basketball.
Yeah, there's actually a big FBI investigation where they were wiretapping college coaches, and 4 different high major Division I assistants got arrested for paying players, and yeah, it definitely happens, a good amount at that level. You'll talk to different people, and they'll kind of give you different percentages of what they think, but there's a lot of money. So even like the sneaker companies like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, those companies want to send like the top, high school basketball players to a Nike college or to an Adidas college or to an Under Armour college. So they were actually kind of the FBI scandal was Adidas trying to like pay players to go to Adidas type schools like Louisville and a couple others. In terms of at some point I do have empathy for them because I know the pressure. But yeah, it's kind of a tough situation. You almost have to sacrifice your morals a little bit, which I don't want to do, which is kind of part of the reason why I don't necessarily have ambitions to coach at that level, because so many people do kind of go into it with I would say kind of like the right intention, but then end up either cheating or, others end up doing it the right way. But, yeah, it's certainly, it's tough. There's a lot of pressure, and, I would like to say if I was at that level, I don't think I wouldn't do it, but I guess you never really know until you're there.
Yeah, I always think about that too, as we obtain leadership or try to elevate ourselves in careers, how we not lose ourselves, like lose the people that we want to be like. Obviously, when people were famous, they weren't always, they were just like us, and I guess somewhere along the way, a lot of people that become famous get lost. I think they get lost in the pressure, right? Like, think of any person that was a rapper and they were just a guy in their neighborhood or something like that, and then they become famous, and then more drama and bad things come your way. So I definitely think about that a lot, like trying to attain success but not lose yourself in successes, if that makes sense, or lose your sense of moral code or your attachments to your friends and your loyalty to people as you become more successful. But I bet it gets really hard as you get higher and higher up, and there's more of a not measuring, but like a magnifying glass on your actions, and everyone is questioning what you do. So I kind of agree with that, but it's just at the same time, I'm sure there's so many people up there at the top that still didn't lose themselves. There's a percentage of people that I bet, still made it to the top cream of the crop, but didn't lose who they were. And so I wonder how they found their balance in being true to themselves, but also being extremely successful.
Yeah, no, there's definitely people that have done it the right way and who are really successful, and at the college level, like won national championships, or like Brad Stevens, he was coaching at Butler, and I don't know 100%, but I from everything I heard, he was doing it the right way, and led Butler to a national championship game, and then became the head coach of the Boston Celtics. So you certainly can do it the right way and keep your values and still be able to succeed. And yeah, in terms of, definitely see with some people with the money and the fame, it changes them, but, other people, it doesn't change. So I think you gotta stay true to who you are, and stay true to your own personal core values. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, like I think part of being successful is not just winning basketball games, or say you're in the business world, becoming a CEO. That's a part of success. But so is being a good dad, or so is being a good friend, or just being a good person in general and treating people the right way.
Right, and I think one of the things is finding what readjusting what success is. Like you said, being a good dad, but also like I think for a coach or me that works in career services, I find success. I find a lot of joy when someone I help becomes successful themselves. Like I feel like I did my part, and I'm pretty sure there's many coaches out there that like they feel a sense of success of if their players, one, either get into the league, or two, just become good men and take the skills of basketball and get jobs. I'm pretty sure if you ask any coach to have like an alumni dinner and all their past players come back and just talk about what the value and things they learn, I bet that would be just as impactful as a national championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as a coach, we should probably judge how successful we are based on what our players are doing 5 and 10 years after they and 20 years after they graduate, rather than how many games we won. I mean, there's basketball. It's a game. Like you're throwing a ball into a basket, and I mean, obviously you want to try to win and do your best for that. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think what's more important is how you impacted those people, and then if those people became successful in their life and became good dads and became had good jobs, and how they developed and how their life went. So I agree with you completely on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that should be a metrics for success. Is like not only like the win-loss column, but like especially for college coaches, what was their players' GPAs? Did they graduate? How many percentage of their players graduated and got degrees? Or, even if they went to the league, came back and finished their degrees. I think that would be way more impactful to me to see a coach that's like, 90% of my guys got their degrees either, later, but eventually got their degrees, as opposed to, winner. Because there's only going to be one champion, so not everyone's going to have national championships as notches on their belt. So to find success as a coach, we got to find, I guess, different layers or numbers. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of coaches that are, even at the D1 level, their kids are finishing instead of being the one and done. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I'm about to go on a little tangent. What's your thoughts on one and dones? And do you think that if we should just eliminate the notion or the policy of kids having to go to college? Because we already know if they're one and done, they didn't want to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
And they're already trying to go to the league. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like that rule is probably going to change pretty soon. It's really for the elite of the elite. So like the top, 10 or so high school basketball players in the country. I agree. I don't think you should have to force them to go to college, because a lot of them, especially like say Zion Williamson, who's going to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Not him in particular, but anybody. Like oftentimes they're doing basically the first semester, and then the second semester they're just getting themselves ready for the NBA because they know they're going to be a top 5 or a top 10 draft pick.
Right.
One idea that I heard was either allowing them to go right to the NBA, or if they do come to college, having to stay 2 years in college. This way they're kind of getting a little bit more of that experience and kind of be able to develop and take more classes. So I think that's a pretty good idea, kind of giving that option where you can go straight to the NBA, or if you do come to college, you just have to stay at least 2 years. But I think players have to kind of do what's best for them. Like a lot of the players are coming from difficult situations, and some are coming from poverty, others are not, but they have a chance to make millions of dollars and play in the NBA. So I feel like you should be able to have that opportunity right out of high school, because there is a chance, even though it's a small chance, you could get injured in that freshman year and kind of have that opportunity taken away as well. So that's kind of one of the other arguments for allowing people to go right to the NBA. But that kind of be my thought.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with notion number 2 of, was that number 2, not the 2 years? No, I mean, I agree with just not having them go to college in the first place.
Mm.
If they're NBA ready and they're gonna do it, I just would love to have maybe them really think long and hard, have a seminar and say, here's some things to learn how about your money. And I know, because the only thing about college is like, college really doesn't always teach people life skills either. So, like some people even graduate all 4 years, college kids graduate all 4 years and don't have skills about paying bills and all that stuff. So, I don't know, I just feel like, how do we prepare young men, especially young black men, to have like no exposure to other things beyond basketball? Because, either they're one and done or go straight into the league. They can get hurt at any moment. And they haven't ever thought or invested in a plan B and learning other skills. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because that's more of a systematic societal thing, right? Like, line of getting our kids ready for pro sports, but knowing, and that the funnel is like only like 1%. I don't know the name percentage, but not everyone makes it to that level.
Much less than that. Yeah, it's like 0.01%.
So how do we prepare our young men and women and D1 athletes across all sports to be ready for other ways of work? I love those commercials now that NCAA is saying, hey, half of you student athletes are more than, soccer players and all that. You're not going to play pro sports. So, I love it that we want you to come to school to get an education. And so, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do about it, because obviously we put so much money into professional athletes that a lot of people see that as the measure of success, but not realize that not everyone gets there. But, I think that regardless of getting there or not, I don't think that we should force kids to go to school. And, like you said, they're either going to take only one semester and really not be invested in their learning. And two, it's just to get a pipeline of these colleges to, like, not even build programs or even build names of the programs. They're just going to pump players out, and then they bounce. So I don't even think programs even get an opportunity to develop. Like Kansas State was good for 1 year when they had Beasley, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gone. Oklahoma had Blake Griffin 1 year.
Yep.
He gone. So those programs don't even grow. I think the only school where, in my mind, one and dones really do it, but continuously do it, is Kentucky. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, Kentucky and Duke, but even then, like, not that many one and dones have won the national championship. Like, Kentucky won it one time with a bunch of freshmen.
Yeah.
Duke had kind of a mix of freshmen and seniors 1 year when they won it, but a lot of, like, Duke had the best freshman class maybe in the history this past year, and they didn't win the championship. They lost in the Elite Eight. So yeah, schools like, Villanova is kind of really an example of getting guys to stay 3 and 4 years, and maybe not getting like a top 10 player, but getting, somewhere between like a 50 and 100 player, and then really developing them over 4 years and just making them much better basketball players. And then you also have more cohesion, just because guys are used to playing with each other. When you play with the same guys for 2 and 3 years, you get really comfortable with them.
And I love that mindset too. I think that, and there's really no other sport where they do it. I don't think there's no one and dones really in football. You know what I'm saying? Like,
football, they have to stay at least 2 years. So football, it's 2 years in college, and then they can leave. So that they can leave after their sophomore year. And football, the other thing with that is kind of injuries, because their bodies are still like developing more. So I kind of understand having to stay 2 years, because maybe if some of those guys are going right to the NFL, they're probably the chance of injuries is higher, just because they're playing against grown men and their body is still developing.
Yeah, for sure. Like a high school kid would get punished. Could you imagine like a number one quarterback,
someone like Ray Lewis, something like that?
Like a scrawny quarterback playing and then getting hit by Clowney or something. Just they would get destroyed. But that makes sense. But then, okay, so here's another controversial statement. What do you think about paying college athletes and or giving them a stipend? And depending on how much money they get to school, and they have the jerseys with the names on them and their merchandise. Like, do you think that's college players in regards are, I mean, but on the flip side, they are amateur athletes, right? They're not professional athletes. But on the flip side, that they are, if you did per capita, not per capita, but gross of what they, from tickets to sales to what they're bringing to school and what percentage of that they get. What do you think about that controversial statement about paying players?
Yeah, it's definitely an argument where you can certainly argue either side. If you probably would have asked me that 2 years ago, I would say we shouldn't play players. They get free tuition, they get free room and board, they get books, meals. Now I've kind of changed my thoughts on that, and I do think they deserve some money, especially kind of the higher end ones that are generating so much money for their school. Like, Zion Williamson generates so much money for Duke because he's such a huge person that a lot of people will come to the games because of him. They'll get more network deals. They'll sell more jerseys. So I think he should be able to promote himself, whether it's kind of like social media and kind of be able to help build his brand and somehow be able to make money off that brand as well. Be able to build his Instagram following and, maybe get, like some of the kind of main people on Instagram will actually get money from like watch companies, or they'll get money from different things to promote their products on there. So I feel like someone like him who's kind of has a big name should be able to do that as well. Which I think they've talked about that. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. But then I also think, especially at some of these bigger schools, they should be able to get some type of stipend and, get some of the benefits that the school is bringing in. Because, these top athletes are generating millions of dollars for the school. So, I think it is fair that they get, at least some of it.
And I'm not really thinking about, like, giving these kids big bucks, but I'm hearing the other horror stories, or the stories of food insecurity and things where these kids are poor and then they go to college and they still poor as dirt, and they can't even afford, as student athletes, can't even afford basic living things because they really have no money. And then on the flip side, from not having any money, because they put so much time into basketball, they don't even have an opportunity to get part-time jobs.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, their basketball is their job. They're
on-campus jobs. They can't even work at the cafeteria because they don't have enough
time.
So I don't know. Or even this, I think maybe this is a controversial statement. They have no time, because I've looked. One of my colleagues, she showed us basically a week in the life of a student athlete, and I was like, Jesus, when do they actually study? It's crazy, jam-packed. Weight room, all that. And I was wondering, like, on the flip side, too, for a 4-year athlete to a 1-year athlete, where's the opportunity for them to even get an internship or get life skills outside of basketball? Like, could they build in a time where they have to work or get enough time to work a part-time job?
I think people don't realize the time commitment that these athletes do, and, not just basketball. Football players do it, or women's soccer players do it, or gymnasts do it. Between the practice time, the strength and conditioning, the film work, the travel that you're doing, going to different places, takes up a ton of your time. And, I mean, it's one of the reasons why, especially these athletes have to be good at managing their time. And it's one of the things we talked about to our freshmen that come into Bard is, time management, and you have less class time that you did in high school, but you have more work outside class. But then how you manage kind of that work and your time, and also the time that we put into basketball, and be able to make it work. So that's why, they don't have as much time to do other things. That's why, teaching life skills is, the coach has some responsibility in that as well, because you're really with them all the time, and you're kind of either a father figure or a mentor to them, and definitely have some type of influence over them. But it's certainly something to think about. Some of them can get internships during the summer. Some of the Division I schools do make them kind of come back a little bit earlier, but at least for Division III, our athletes do get internships during the summer, and we kind of encourage them for that.
Yes, I mean, that's great. I was about to ask that, like, what opportunities do they have for actual professional development, knowing that a lot of them are not going to go to the next level? So where do we get opportunities for them to learn not just life skills, but actual on-the-job experience? So when they have a resume, it says, basketball player, but also internships. So obviously you said that they do that over summer breaks and whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean at the Division III level, like really, maybe one Division III basketball player every like 10 or 15 years will go to the NBA. Some of the top Division III players will go and play in Europe, but over 99% or a little bit over 99% of them will get regular jobs after it. So really, in Division III, as I mentioned before, they're not getting athletic scholarships, so they're really doing it for the love of the game. They're playing basketball or whatever sport they're playing because they enjoy to play it, and they have a passion for it, and they enjoy being on the team as well. But yeah, I think certainly we encourage our guys to get internships, and most of them will get one in between their sophomore and junior year, and then also in between their junior and senior year. And a lot of times the internships do lead to jobs as well.
Excellent. And then just in general, do you have a career center at Bard?
Yeah, we do. We have a career center that's it's for all the students. So they'll help with internships, and they'll also kind of help with preparing you for getting jobs, either whether it's interview prep or resumes or how to go about it in the process.
Yeah, and I'm just asking in general, do they have enough, like you said, with the flexibility? Do they get an opportunity to meet with those advisors? Do they have any time left in the day, or is it pretty jam-packed for them as well?
Yeah, Division III, they do have a little bit more time, but even at the Division I level, there are certainly time kind of throughout the week where you can meet with someone for an hour or 2 hours, and we even tell especially at our level, if someone has to have a meeting with a professor and they're going to be missing a weight room session, we're okay with that, and we're just make sure to get the lift in later, but academics, it does come first for us, and I think at Division I, Division II, or Division III, it should come first. There is time within the day. It's just kind of whether the students take advantage of that.
Now, obviously, geographically, D1 probably gets a pull from all over the country because they have names. Where typically geographically do you get your players from?
Yeah, we actually recruit from all over the place as well, which, this year, and I think the one thing people don't realize about college coaching is just how much recruiting goes into it. Mm-hmm. Recruiting is probably the number one thing in my job, just in terms of getting, really good basketball players, getting high character people, and, in order to win or to be successful, recruiting is, number one thing. We are kind of getting players from all over the place. We had a freshman this past year who is from Seattle, Washington. We have a recruit next year who's from Arizona. We have another recruit who's from Greece. We actually have one guy who's currently on our team from Greece, another guy that was on our team from Cyprus, and then we're bringing in another kid from Greece. So we got kind of a little European connection going as well. But we'll really recruit throughout the whole country. Kind of most is New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. But like I said, we're kind of getting kids from all over the place.
Now, when we got these talented players, what is the things that you say is unique about your program, and maybe not convincing them, but how they have the understanding that they're going to a D3 school? So what are some things that they have an understanding when they come into the program?
Yeah, I mean, kind of my first interaction really with recruits is I'll see them at an event, and then I'll text them at the event, kind of introducing myself and telling about the school briefly, and then if they have if they're willing to talk to me, and then when I talk to them, I've probably after 3 years at Bard, I've done it kind of a few hundred times. But I'll talk about the academics. I'll talk about the school itself, and then the academics, and then the basketball. So I do it in that order as well. And we sell kind of our big sell at Bard is it's a liberal arts school, which means it's a smaller school, but there's smaller class sizes. So average class size at Bard is 15 students per class. So you have really a chance to get to know the other students in the class, get a chance to know the professor. And the classes are largely discussion-based, so it's a lot more interactive and engaging rather than just kind of sitting in a big lecture hall and listening to professors lecture. So that's one of the main things that we do sell.
Nice. So I'm not blanking because I'm thinking this has really been a great conversation about coaching. I see on here, and the things that we're talking about, motivation. What keeps you motivated? What do you listen to learn how to motivate others? So, what keeps you motivated, and then what helps you become a good motivator? What things have you listened to train yourself to be a good motivator?
Yeah, keeps me motivated is, listen to podcasts, listen to Positive Filter for sure. It's probably number one thing. Keeps me motivated, keeps me going. But, I do I do a good amount of self-improvement. So I'll listen to your podcast. I'll listen to kind of, a few other ones like School of Greatness and, one of your former guests, Dean Bakari. He has a really good podcast as well. So I'll making sure that I'm kind of doing a bunch of self-improvement stuff. And then, I do reading at night. But, I try, I'm kind of, I would say, a pretty motivated person in general. But then also really taking days off, because other times, like, I'll kind of work a lot in a row and then kind of get a little bit worn down. So making sure I have kind of some time outside of basketball and outside my work helps with that as well. In terms of motivating athletes, I think really the best way to do it is to build a relationship with them, to kind of get a chance to know them, kind of find out what makes them tick and what makes them work. Like, do they need to be, encouraged, or do you get to be really positive with them? Can you be a little bit harder on them? Kind of get a chance to know them, and also just building a trust with them will help you motivate them as well. And then, we try to motivate kind of individually and then also in group settings. So we'll motivate the team during, film session or before practice, but then we'll also kind of call players in one-on-one and talk to them and try to really, see what they're interested in and try to motivate them that way as well. And then I think, for kind of one of my philosophies, and I got this from John Wooden, is, I don't want to have to give like a rah-rah speech every single time and give some great speech to get them motivated before the game. I think it should more just be a standard in terms of this is how hard we're going to play, and this is kind of the standard we're going to hold you guys to, and making sure kind of every time we go out on the court or field or whatever it is, we're going to be playing at a certain level, and really just, having high standards in that regard and, holding them accountable to those.
I love it. So we're at the part of the show that if the listeners are new to the show, I call it Shot for Shot. So my guest gets to ask me any question they want. It doesn't even have to be related. It could be related. I don't care. I'll answer honestly. And I get to ask them any question I want, and I don't care. So do you want to go first, or I'll go first, Matt?
I'll ask you a question first. So you kind of asked me in terms of, like, how I prevent myself from either getting burnt out or worn down. Like, I feel like you're busier than I am with your work, with the podcast, with your family, having two children. How do you best manage it, and how do you make sure that, you're able to do everything and not get burnt out yourself?
So I'll be quite honest with the listeners. It's a lot of being checked. My wife checks me a lot. But I've tried this new exercise where what it is, I listed out all the roles that are important into my life, right? And I put it in order. And obviously I started with father and husband first. And I went to my job at Mason, because obviously that gives me a paycheck, and then all the different things, being a member of Alpha and podcasting, all those different things. And some of the things I had to recheck myself is like I was losing myself in priorities and looking at, does this necessarily feed into my number one roles in my life? And so there was times where I was lacking as a husband or a father because I'm putting maybe something that should be just mainly a hobby or an extracurricular above it. So I keep that list visible at my desk. Kind of just remind me, what am I doing? How am I spending my time? And then normally I just think of like when I got to get things done and not be burnt out, I try to really think, is this something I'm really just doing, for my attention or just getting the attention, or is it really, are these things I'm really doing to advance myself or maybe make a better life? Like if I had to stay home late at work, so that I know that work is taking a priority over being around my wife and my boys, but then I look at them like, okay, the reason why I'm doing it for this situation is because me being really good at my job is going to make a better life for my kids or my wife. So I just try to list the main roles in my life and try to reframe. I had friend on there too. Being a friend is very important to me. So like me doing all this stuff, is it taking away from my friendships? And have I not checked in with my friends in a while? So I keep that list, and I'm not even erasing it. I keep that list on my whiteboard at work. I'm probably going to write it somewhere at home as well. And then I just kind of like, that's what I keep from being. And then I get burnt out, or I do too much and I crash. So I'm still, for myself as the host of Positive Filter, I'm not perfect at all. I'm growing and learning. But I found just little techniques like writing it out or writing the roles in my life and making sure that they stay in the correct order and nothing gets over what should be really important to me. And then also just thinking about what I think about my actions, how each of those actions play into it. Like, is this really necessary? Is this really going to make me a better father and stuff? So I've learned also to say no to things too, if they're not on my list. If they're not on my list or make my list or make my life better or add to my roles, then I learn to say no, thank you, or I can't make it. And, it's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that's big as well, right? For sure.
Like the learning, there's an art that I haven't learned yet, but I know some people out there that are masters at it. When you let me know when you really master it, the art of saying no. We all want to say yes, and we watch that movie, say yes to everything, whatever. But there's a real art too as well to saying no, and not saying no just because you're scared or whatnot. Saying no to preserve your well-being, and saying no to definitely prioritize what's important. So I'm learning that too. Like, I don't necessarily need to do this or that. No, thank you. And also knowing that I don't have to. I have the extreme case of FOMO.
What's that?
Huh?
What? You have the extreme case of FOMO?
FOMO, fear of missing out. You never heard that?
No. Fear of missing out. Okay, no, I haven't.
Yeah, FOMO. It's a chronic disease that some people have cure for, but I definitely have experienced extreme cases of FOMO where I just feel like I'm missing out. But it's funny. I would say the magic. You know what the magic cure of FOMO is?
What's that?
2 boys. I really don't like. I'm at a point now where I don't feel like I really miss out on much. I'm like, I'm so tired, I don't even care. I'm gonna just stay at home. So they really helped me learn to say no as well. Like saying like,
gotcha.
Hey, man, you want to come out? No, man, I'm good. Tonight's my night with the family, or I can't, or so. But burning out, you just gotta write the list of your roles in life and make sure that you're not taken away. I remember one story, and this is a long tangent, but I remember one story. Urban Meyer, he was burnt out and he was getting sick.
Yeah.
His kids made him write a contract.
Okay.
He took the Ohio State job.
Yeah.
They made him write a contract that says you got to do this, this, and this, and if you get too much, you're quitting coaching. And he made that contract with his family, and it was mainly about reprioritization and making sure he's setting time to be around his family. So his family held him accountable to that. So I think my wife, Maggie, does a very good job about that. She says a lot like, are you really doing this for the right reasons? Are you really doing this, being out of the house? Are you sure that you being out of the house is for the right reasons? Is it to make your life better? Is it really to help elevate your career and things like that? So that's how I reprioritize things.
Gotcha. I like that Urban Meyer story. I never heard that before.
Yeah, just type in Urban Meyer's family contract. I think that would come up.
Gotcha.
Let me see. Yeah. While you answer your questions, I'm gonna check it out on the Google. So
gotcha.
Your question is, and I kind of am gonna go on the lane. You can take as long as you want or whatever quality. I want you to tell me your top 5 coaches so you can write them down on a bullet piece of paper. But I want you to say if you can make a hybrid coach. Your top 5 coaches, and then one aspect that you would take, even if they overlap, one aspect that you would take from each coach to apply to you.
Oh wow, that's a good question. I'm gonna write down. Let's see.
Yeah, so we're both on the computer right now. Yeah, here you go. I found the Urban Meyer's contract. I'll send it to you in an email. But
all right, cool.
Get it. His family made him accountable and hold up to his contract. Oh, okay. Actually, here's just some bullet points of the things that they said in the contract while you write out your list. He said the contract, which became quite famous, contained 10 items that were written out by his daughter. Number 1, my family always comes first. Number 2, I will take care of myself and maintain good health. Number 3, I will go on a trip once a year with Nikki, at minimum, his daughter. Shout out to her.
Okay.
I will not go more than 9 hours a day at the office. So that means 9 hours a day max at the office. I will sleep with my cell phone on silent. I will continue to communicate daily with my kids. I will trust God's plan and not be over anxious. I will keep the lake house. I love this. I will find a way to watch Nikki and Gia play volleyball. I will eat 3 meals a day. And his family kept him accountable to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially like a big time coach like Urban Meyer, they have so many different things pulling them in every direction. So like keeping your priorities, and which are your family and your well-being is really big. So I think that's an awesome idea.
And you have to see, these goals came from a reason. So obviously he was not sleeping well. He was always on his phone. He wasn't eating, and he was going months and months without going on family trips and taking care of it. Just relaxing and going on a trip or going to the lake. So I think his family had to check him.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think his body checked him because he got real sick too. Anyway, so he needed to take care of himself. So
I got you. I got my 5 coaches here. So first one is Jay Wright from Villanova, and the one thing that I'll take for him, I think right now he's probably the best, or if not the best coach, one of the best coaches in the country at building culture. So I went to a couple of their practices and talked with him, but also just like watching their players and how like receptive they are to coaching and how hard they work. Like the number one thing Jay Wright emphasizes in his program is attitude, and just having the right attitude in terms of being positive, being coachable, being resilient, how you interact with others. It was so evident when I went to their practice. So for the thing I would take for him is building culture, and especially through attitude. Second one is Coach K. I think he's the best, or one of the best coaches in the country at communicating with his players and also motivating his players. But I think just kind of communicating and building relationships with his players, he does a really good job. And that's kind of something I was been working on lately, is developing a little bit closer relationships with players. Third one is Tom Izzo, who's the head coach at Michigan State. And the thing I would take from him is he really builds a team that has just a lot of toughness in terms of they play really hard, they're physical, they're tough, they just don't back down. So I kind of take that from him. Fourth one's Brad Stevens, who's the head coach of the Celtics. I mentioned him before. Brad Stevens is just like a basketball X's and O's genius. So just in terms of like designing and drawing up plays, he's really, really good. So I would be able to take some of his basketball knowledge and, his plays. And then the last one is Greg Popovich, who is the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. And he's actually now the head coach of USA Basketball. But I heard him talk at a clinic, and he was talking about like how he invests in wine and has like this huge collection of wine and is into like foods, and he's really able to keep his life in balance. Like he has a lot going on outside basketball, which I think is huge, and it can be tough to do, but he's got a lot of other interests outside basketball, which is really cool.
Dope. I love your list. I mean, this has been an excellent episode. We could talk for hours. We're going to have to do a part 2 or a live in person when you come down to VA. Definitely have a part 2 of this episode. But now we're at the end of the episode, so I want to give you the platform to give any shout-outs and plugs in any way that the listeners can follow up with you and your team. So the floor is yours, Matt. Shout-outs and plugs and anything that you want to talk about. Anything that you want the listeners to know. And definitely put that in the show notes as well, so I will definitely make sure to copy the social media and the links and all that stuff for the listeners. But the floor is yours.
All right, awesome. First shout out would be to 1150 H Ashby, which is where we were living junior and senior year. So it was you, me, Kelly, and Chris, as you mentioned before, and I feel fortunate to have lived with you guys. And then, just shout out to you as well for this podcast and really just for following your dreams. Podcast is, I've talked to other people who have done it. It's a ton of work, and, you've really developed this podcast and really got it going. And, I feel like it just keeps getting better and better, and you get, awesome guests on it. And, you just have a lot of really good content. So, shout out to you for sure. In terms of following me, Matt Alfonso 1 on Instagram is my Instagram handle. On Twitter, Coach Alfonso is my Twitter, and then Bard Basketball, where I coach at. That's all. We also have a Twitter page there, which I manage. So there's kind of a couple ways to follow me, through Instagram and Twitter.
And the school has a website for the program? What's the
so bardathletics.com. So you can go to there, and if you go to men's basketball, you can kind of follow our season and our schedule. And actually, you can watch the games there as well, which is really cool. So if you go to schedule, they have live streams.
Okay, I need to do the live stream one day. What time in the day are your games? Are they all night games?
Yeah, so we usually play Friday and Saturday. This way kids don't miss many classes. Okay. So Friday nights, this year they actually moved it up to 7 p.m., and then Saturday is at 4 p.m. So,
And with the live stream, obviously, if you just do it on a computer, you could put it up on TV.
Yeah, you can do it right through. You can watch it on the computer. If you wanted to, transfer it from the computer and have, HDMI go into the TV, you could do that as well. But, it's free as well. You just kind of click the link, and then it'll come up.
Oh, there you go, listeners. So I might have a watch party. I might have a watch party at my house. And watch it in my basement once the kids go to sleep.
Nice.
But I'm definitely gonna follow on with the journey. Now I know that you can watch the games. I'm gonna have to check in on digitally and watch the games and join in and get a Bard. What's the mascot name? Bard. What's y'all? The Bard.
We're the Raptors.
Oh, like the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah. So the bird, which it's pretty cool mascot. I would say it's one of the better ones.
All right. Well, there you go. And so check it out. We're gonna cheer you on next season. When does the season start?
We start practice October 15th, and we start games usually a month later. So it's around November 15th. All
right. Well, we gotta keep an eye out for the new season coming up in November 2019. So you got plenty of time to recruit, and we'll be keeping along with that. And hopefully we see each other before the season starts or over the summer. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a great show, and I think we learned that there's so much value into coaching, and it's not just about coaching X's and O's. It's about building leaders and young men and women and whatever you're coaching, but you have a responsibility there, and I think you're doing a great job. And I think the approach that you have in regards to wellness and feelings and being a good person, that translates more to wins, W's, and L's, right? I know that you're being a good mentor and really helping young men, and that's 10 times more important than the win-loss column. So keep it up. I'm very proud of you. I always brag. I always brag when I say Gonzaga. I say, yo, my boy for Gonzaga. And I went to that game to watch Gonzaga in the DC championship.
Yeah.
Exciting. Against the Matha. That was pretty exciting. And I was really proud to watch you then, and I'm very proud of you now. And I always will be. So.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And for the coaching, it's not just the college coaching. I think people that are coaching their, kids' youth teams in middle school and elementary school, same thing. They can make a huge impact, and a lot of them are doing it for free and just volunteering. So, I appreciate that.
Yeah, shout out like your dad, Tony. Shout out to Tony.
Shout out to Tony.
now you got to send him this episode and tell him we shot him out twice.
Shout out to my mom as well. I don't want to leave her out.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to your mom. I love your mom. Your mom. This is, I'm going on the last tangent, but your mom hypes me on the Instagram. It gets me juiced up. I love it.
Yeah, my mom loves you on Instagram. She follows you back and loves Bennett and all the pictures that you guys post of your kids as well, Bennett and Miles.
I love her so much. shout out to them. Shout out to the Alfonso family. And if you have any questions for the podcast, you can send me a message or you could call 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Or just leave a comment on the Facebook page. I'll get to it because we're going to do a Q&A episode every now and then. Thank you so much, Matt. It's been a pleasure. And, you're going to come back again. We're going to do a part 3, part 2, whatever. We're going to do multiple parts.
All right. Thanks, Phil.
No problem. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, spreading positivity of movement. Thanks for listening.